Well, guys, President Biden is still yet to announce his official bid for re-election. He is expected to do that soon. It comes while the field of possible Republican challengers slowly grows. My guest tonight is Kaivan Shroff. He's a Democratic strategist, former digital organizer for the 2016 Hillary Clinton campaign. He's up late with me tonight here on the Final Five. Welcome. Good to see you tonight.
Great to join you.
Hey, so we've already been talking ad nauseum about the former president getting into the race here. Marianne Williamson announced her admittedly long shot bid over the weekend. Why are we still waiting for President Biden to make official what we all know he's going to do?
Yeah, you know, I think actually people keep having this discussion, but Biden's approach seems pretty consistent with Bill Clinton, George Bush, Obama, and Trump. They all kind of waited until spring, so around April, June, really, to make that re-election announcement. And meanwhile, you know, I don't think he's too worried about Marianne Williamson getting an early head start here. So I think they're just getting their affairs in order. You know, We just had the State of the Union. They're going to give the new Congress sort of a chance to see what happens from there, or really what doesn't happen is more likely. And then we should expect the announcement in a few months.
Look, if I don't mention that Marianne Williamson's running, people are going to get pissed off at me. That's the only reason I mentioned it there. Let's talk about issues that we're going to look at going into 2024, because as you know, everybody suspected the Democrats to be, for lack of a better word, shellacked in the midterms, which did not happen. It was barely a ripple here. But when you look at the approval ratings, you know, it's still in the 40s here, maybe getting towards the 50s. What's going to be the issues? What does President Biden hang his hat on going into 2024?
So I think people should expect much of what they saw in 2020 in terms of the themes and narratives, and really the next step of his case, which is 2020, it was, I'm going to be this unity candidate. You know, the country's having this fractured time. Democracy is on the line. And now he's got a couple years in and he has some wins on the board. So he's going to be able to say, like we heard at that State of the Union, despite what media sort of might convey in the back and forth, there have been over 300 bipartisan bills passed so far in Biden's term. Big agenda items like, you know, taking care of COVID, the infrastructure bill, record low unemployment. Those are things he's going to be able to highlight. And then, of course, you know, the big thing about running for re-election is people don't want to hear what you've done for them. They want to hear what you're going to do. And so I think the pitch is very much, we need more time. And one of the challenges we might see is that sense of urgency that people felt in 2020, especially people voting specifically on democratic and democracy, small d, protecting issues, that urgency might feel a little less in your face in 2024, but I think we'll see some themes come forward to emphasize that as well.
Does the calculus for Democrats change based on, I know it does in general when you look at the opposition, but in this case, it's not as though we're looking at a pro-Trump wing of the Republican Party and a more establishment wing. You're looking at what is likely going to be Donald Trump versus Ron DeSantis. Ron DeSantis, a man who probably would not be governor if not for Donald Trump's endorsement. I mean, just ask him. But does that change for Democrats when you look at these guys who stand for many of the same things here on the other side?
I think it's going to be very interesting to see what Republicans are willing to do in terms of going after Donald Trump. So we've seen some sort of really veiled jabs so far, comments on sort of building up the debt, et cetera, but they really haven't gone after him in a major way, including, you know, Nikki Haley and others. And they're all sort of, I think, waiting each other out to see who's going to throw that first punch at Trump. And if they wait too long, I think you're going to have a 2016 redux where it's sort of, you know, Trump is going to be up ahead of the rest of the pack and everyone will kind of be below him. If DeSantis really starts to pick a fight early on, then we're going to see that DeSantis-Trump head-to-head. And I think it does it serves Democrats really to have that. The more sort of Trump and DeSantis can divide the base, which we're seeing a little of. I don't know if you caught that story of DeSantis, I guess, not allowing some Trump supporters into his book event. And obviously Trump is not shy to throw out a nickname like Meatball Ron and things like that. We saw Haley get sort of heckled at CPAC. And I think, you know, we'll probably see some more conflict in the GOP primary to come.
We've had some Republican strategists on the show before. And when you mentioned Meatball Ron, for example, even you hear some of them saying, look, you know, maybe it's time to step back from that sort of campaign strategy. They're seeing, at least the ones we've talked to, see DeSantis as some sort of return to normalcy in the context of a campaign, because if anybody ran the most untraditional campaign, it clearly is Donald Trump back in 2016.
Absolutely. I think what's going to be an interesting challenge, but I think an opportunity for Democrats, is to really demonstrate that, yes, there are a lot of people saying that, but when you really take a closer look at the quote unquote moderates or sort of different candidates like a Nikki Haley or a DeSantis, when you look at the substance of what they've been saying and doing, it's actually very similar to Trump, honestly, without any of the charisma. So I think that's DeSantis's big challenge. But look at these moderates. I'm saying, is Haley a moderate if in November she called for the deportation of U.S.-born Senator Raphael Warnock? You know, to me, that's really much more in the Trump bucket of sort of things to say. So I think we're going to see really exposure of what this purported moderate aspect of the Republican Party is, and maybe make the case that it doesn't really exist.
Yeah, well, clearly, whatever we see going into a primary always seems to change and evolve as you get into a general election, too. But again, these are different times and these are different candidates here. Kaivan Shroff, thanks for joining me tonight. Good to see you.
Great to be here.
Our pleasure. And the Final Five is back after this.